And welcome back, Idiot Squared viewers. Today on the pod, we are talking about crypto. Yes, that is right. We're going to have some delightful conversations about why crypto's pumping suddenly. And get your bags while you can, because that shit is going to the moon. So, Reuben, why is it pumping? Why now? They said November, they said October, they've been saying it forever. Bitcoin should already be at 250,000 plus, but it's not. But anyways, why the sudden pump though?
I'm not 100% sure, but I love that intro. That was fantastic. Thank you very much. Yeah, honestly, I don't know. Well, one reason is the ETFs have been approved. So there's been some sizable inflows through ETFs. I think like substantial amount. I think yesterday there was like $530 million in ETF inflows into Bitcoin. I think that's probably responsible for part of it. I don't know. The other part might be like this time in the cycle. Maybe some people some of the funds are rotating out of some of their tech stocks and allocating to Bitcoin or crypto. I don't know. It's kind of an interesting thing. We can definitely dive in and discuss some more things. What's your running or working hypothesis with why it's pumping?
Yeah, the only thing I could go off is the recent ETF thing. I think it was BlackRock that recently released that they're going to be doing Bitcoin ETFs, right? So BlackRock is a massive conglomerate. They're like a fund, right? Basically.
Yeah, they
Like
essentially
what's kind of fund?
manage like $21 trillion, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, that's it. Which is basically, it's almost the size of America's GDP. So they're moving a shit ton of money. I don't understand what an ETF is, though. Do you know what that is essentially?
Electronically traded fund. It's a way to get exposure to certain things.
And when they say that they're having a Bitcoin ETF, what does that mean to you exactly?
So essentially what it is it's giving like investors or people who money they manage access to Bitcoin or exposure to Bitcoin without them having to actually buy Bitcoin, right? So if you're someone who's got, certain amount of savings or money that you're wanting to invest, you don't really want to deal with buying Bitcoin and keeping the keys secure and all that kind of stuff, then they can essentially sell you this ETF, which then buys the Bitcoin and gives you exposure to Bitcoin without them having to actually, like the end user having to actually buy and hold the Bitcoin.
If you look at the last year, like Bitcoin has been steadily increasing over the last year. And there was lots of calls about how the market was going to crash, how we were going to see some sort of market crash, be careful investing and this and that. But ever since there's been talk about that, the market has been pretty good over the last year. There, especially if you look at AI stocks, like AI stocks are doing crazy. And overall, I would say the market has been good. So do you think that's cause for concern? Because we were supposed to have some sort of recession-ish type of market, which never really came. So is that still a mince, or do you think that we're just plowing through?
Yeah, that's a good question. I am skeptical that we're just plowing through. Like if we zoom out long enough, like good at the moment, the market's pumping, things are going up. But whether or not they continue to continuously go up without some pullbacks, I think is, I don't think that's likely. I do think that there will at some point have to be sort of a facing the music, so to speak, that term. Like, I do think there probably will be some sort of correction, or maybe there's a global event that happens, that causes like a short-term crash before things continue to go up. Just to hit on the ETF, exchange traded fund, not electronic. I messed that up. So it's an exchange traded fund, but everything still applies, right? It's a way to get exposure. Okay, so with this, yeah, it seems like a bad sitch. Like, inflation is pretty sticky. Bitcoin is said to be a hedge against inflation, so maybe that's why it's going up. Last time we saw Bitcoin pump like this, it was pretty much because of the liquidity and how low interest rates were, but interest rates are still pretty high. So what's causing this right now? Is it just the ETF inflows? Possibly could be. Or there could be some sort of, manipulation happening to sort of, lure a bunch of people in so that some people can make a bit of money before before a correction occurs. I tend to be, I don't know if it's because I got PTSD or whatever, or I'm just like becoming more cynical or realistic. I don't know how to describe it in my age, but I do feel like this, although it is good, it doesn't seem to be like the big takeoff, if that makes sense. Like this could be the run before a crash, before another big run, is how I'm kind of thinking about this possibly. The thing that's got me a little bit concerned currently is NATO has just like a thing yesterday or the day before, or maybe 2 days before that, about how they are going to accept Ukraine into NATO. And it's not a matter of if, but when. And Putin or Russia has been very clear that if that is the case, that they will take that as like as an attack on Russia, essentially. So the way things are shaping up, like you've got all this euphoria and this pumping on one side of things with some of the markets and with crypto. And then on the other side of things, you got things heating up a little bit more. So things are sort of, the potential for volatility seems to be increasing, if that kind of makes sense. So short answer is I have no damn idea, but I do find this is an interesting time, and it could be great opportunities to level up your wealth status if you are able to play it.
I couldn't agree more, dude. I feel that there is like a dip coming or some sort. No, I don't know if I can't say crash because I don't know that, but I just feel that this isn't going to continue, that we're going to have a pretty massive dip before it goes back up again. And I think you're right. I think they're luring us in. I think the slow build is luring more people in to buy in now. But regardless, I think over a long term, it'll be good. Even if you buy, like, because we're almost at the top now. I think the highest was above 60, or it was below 70, but above 60 USD per Bitcoin.
Yeah, it depends what currency you denominate it in. So I'm pretty sure in like Norwegian currency, it's an all-time high. I'm pretty sure Japan, it's an all-time high. Like there's a bunch of South Africa is an all-time high. Like there's a bunch of currencies that are seeing it as all-time highs currently. So it's above what it's previously been at. It's now setting new all-time highs. But like you said, in regards to USD, I don't think it is an all-time high just yet. It's close, damn close.
Yeah, so it's looking real good, right? And you said something really interesting about what, like, things are kind of heating up. Bro, mad shit's heating up right now, all right before the next election, the next American election. It's kind of crazy. They're letting there's a huge influx of immigrants coming in through Texas into the States and just going all around the States. And people from other countries are taking advantage of that. Like, it's not Mexicans coming in, like it's people from all over the place going in. And there's like a massive influx of well, I don't know. I don't even know if we can call them illegal immigrants, because they're consciously letting people in.
Yeah, they're kind of welcoming these people. So it's just like new members who don't have legal status yet. But have you seen the stuff about New York, right? Like, so in New York, they're like welcoming these people with open arms. They're providing shelters. They're kicking kids out of schools and putting up these people in the shelters. And now there's some talk about the mayor or something of New York wanting to give them $10,000 credit lines. Like, he's trying to give them these cards that have $10,000 worth of credits on them, essentially.
Damn.
It's just like,
damn.
Wait, what? And not only that, is this appears to be an uptick in crime. And apparently, from some of the things that I've seen, that they're not necessarily being prosecuted for these crimes. Like they're like, one of the crimes I saw was like a group of younger men attacking police officers and then essentially being released just after that. So like pretty crazy stuff. So
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's mad interesting.
It's sad because American taxpayers, like that's where their money is going, which is horrible, which sucks for them. And I also believe that they're going to be giving these people voting rights as well.
Yeah, I don't know if they're going to consciously officially give them voting rights, so to speak, but apparently they can vote in some elections. And I don't know, Elon's been tweeting about this a little bit and saying how like ridiculous it is. And then a bunch of people try and tell him that he's wrong. And then he posts videos of actual like judicial like hearings in the not court, but like in their chamber meetings for the politicians or whatever. And apparently it is true. So like, I don't know, it's a lot of kayfabe, like there's so many layers of obfuscation that it gets kind of hard to keep track of it. But yeah, essentially like it's looking like, yeah, they're going to be able to vote in some capacity. So it just seems crazy to me. Like this is all just bonkers. It just seems like a giant show is being put on to sort of distract us, everybody else, from other things, right? Like a little bit of a magician's trick, the obfuscation, or like, look over here while I do this here kind of vibe. So I don't know. Everything just seems a little bit, funky, if you know what I mean.
I couldn't agree more. So this is why I think that some sort of, like you mentioned it before, you didn't say adjustment, correction, like a market correction is likely to occur. And I mean, the American dollar, like, was it Putin? I think it was Putin on Tucker Carlson. He was talking about how they're already trading with other currencies, how they've decreased trading with American dollar or using American dollar to do some sort of trades has gone down significantly. I can't remember the percentage that he said, but it was a massive percentage of trades that they're doing with other currencies now. And other countries are doing the same. So the American dollar isn't as powerful as it once was. So there's so many things happening at the same time. But how large, like, I don't know how largely BTC is affected by the American dollar because it's not really pegged to the American dollar per se, is it? Because
No,
it's sort of like its own thing, right?
No, but everybody denominates it like, well, not everybody, but the majority of people denominate it in USD. Like USD has been the global sort of currency for exchange over the last, X number of years. So it does appear to be like a bit of a shift, and shifts happen slowly, step by step, and then all of a sudden. And so, yeah, there are a lot of people in the US who are sort of denying that this is the case, that the US dollar is losing its power. But you can see from the actions of Putin and China, and even I think Saudis now as well, they're dealing, trading oil and exchanging commodities outside of the US dollar, whereas traditionally it was predominantly done in the dollar, like you said. So how does this affect the dollar? Well, it could be massive. There's a couple of interesting sort of like takes on that where a bunch of, pro-US people are sort of saying that like the US can buy back its debt and then that way it can't default because it holds all of its debt, which is like an interesting thing. I don't know too much about it, but we can dig into it if it's interesting. The other thing is like essentially what the US has been able to do, because it has been like the global sort of trade currency, is to export inflation all around the world, as opposed to having it rampant in its own country. And is that shift going? And as people exit the US dollar, does then that sort of inject inflation back into the US economy? And then you can sort of think, is this current run in crypto and Bitcoin largely due to, or, significantly contributed to by people in the US trying to sort of hedge against the US dollar? Right? Like, are they sort of preparing for maybe a bit of a downfall in the dollar? I know that the Aussie dollar is a lot stronger against the US dollar at the moment. I haven't checked for other currencies, but yeah, interesting things there. Anything you want to pick out?
Would do you agree that as the economy um, gets affected and people are forced to sort of sell their investments, would you agree that Bitcoin is still one of those investments that people would likely sell first because it's categorized as a risky investment?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know because I don't know the sentiment of all the people, but I historically, like you're talking sort of like if there was a bit of a crash or there was some sort of global event that happened that caused fear in people. Um,
Yeah,
yeah, I think fear overrides pretty much everything. Um, so I think that you know the average sort of person is still probably going to sell in that regard, right? Like it's kind of like fear is the mind killer. So I don't know if anyone's going to rationally be thinking about their actions. Yeah, obviously there's going to be some funds or managers or whatever who do, and they'll be set to probably make a lot of money. But yeah, I would still think that probably the default response to most people, if a global event happens or something happens to sufficiently scare people, that almost everything will dump before then, possibly back to the races, right? Like what happens when, if that does happen, when there is a sufficient scare and the market does crash, what lengths will the US or other governments or whatever go to try and like pick up the pieces and get things back on the road? Because, if they turn on the money printing again, then it's like, boom, off to the races. And I think that will be a strong signal for everyone to get exposure. Because that just sort of hard codes that inflation problem. It just like compounds on top of it, adds to it.
I saw something interesting today that South Korea owns 15% of XRP.
Oh, wow.
So imagine if something like shit hit the fan in South Korea and people suddenly started selling their XRP, then that could have like a huge effect on XRP's price, right? So that's what I'm kind of going with this. I guess we would have to see if America I'm guessing that the majority ownership of Bitcoin is probably Americans, is what I would guess, right? In comparison to any other country. That's just because based on population and I don't know, culture, right?
Yeah, possibly.
So if shit were to hit the fan in America and people started selling off their Bitcoin just because they see it as like a risky investment, then there could be like a huge, massive dip in the crypto market. In comparison to if shit hit the fan in another country, just based on the fact that maybe the majority of Bitcoin ownership are Americans. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think maybe what do you think about this strategy? If the American dollar started devaluating significantly, did I say that word right? Devaluating. Is that how you say it? What the fuck?
Okay. Yeah. If the value of the US dollar decreases.
Couldn't people would you be able to sell your Bitcoin for another currency like the Chinese yen, for example? Because if you sell your Bitcoin to USD as the market's crashing and then the value of the dollar is dropping, like you're fucking yourself twice. You're getting out of like a decent investment, converting your BTC to dollars. Now the dollar is like decreasing its value in comparison to other currencies. That's like a double fuck. So couldn't you just get out of BTC, change it to UN, and hold? Since people are saying that UN is likely one of the stronger currencies, in the future, could be, or if not, it already is.
Yeah. Maybe. Yeah. Look, if you're a crypto sort of purist or absolutist, then you believe that all currencies other than Bitcoin are going to zero. And Bitcoin is the only way to protect against that because of finite supply and proof of work mechanism. So, a Bitcoin or crypto absolutist or purist wouldn't sell for cash, right? They wouldn't sell for fiat. That's a very common belief in the maxi circle, right? So none
Right.
of them are going to be doing that. It's only the people who are trying to do this for money, essentially, or also people who actually like need to use their wealth or value or monetary energy for things in day-to-day life, right? Like, unfortunately, you can't use crypto to buy all the things that you might need to buy in all the places, right? Like it isn't currently, you're not able to use crypto to completely live your life in most places, right? There are some places that are very Bitcoin or crypto friendly in terms of like you can pretty much just use crypto. You don't have to use fiat, but that isn't the case for all the places in the world just yet. So, to answer your question, that's what I think is the main thing. Like the absolutists or the crypto purists, they believe that crypto is the future and fiat is dead. All fiat's going to zero. So get out while you can, and then you'll separate yourself from the masses by having this immense amount of wealth in the future. I don't know. I'm sort of like somewhere around the middle of all of that. Like I think that they're probably both going to coexist. I think crypto is likely to grow a lot, especially with AI. And I think that like there will be a second economy that kind of emerges on there, mainly with AI, because they can have wallets, they can transact, they can do all of that sort of stuff on there. Like there's no real limiting factor there. And I think that that's probably going to be a big boom and provide a lot of upside. But at the same time, I still think like, fiat's been, money's been around for quite a while. And I still think it's probably going to be pretty sticky. It's probably not all going to go to zero overnight. It might be a very long, slow death kind of thing. Okay, about trying to preserve like your purchasing power, it really comes down to like, what rate of inflation do you have in the currency that you need to use to live, right? So if you're in Turkey, buying some crypto has been a great idea and a great hedge against the local currency, because their local, like the Turkish lira, has just been hammered by inflation. Like their purchasing power has dropped off a cliff. So if you just held lira, you're essentially in a pretty bad way right now, right? Like you've lost a lot of the purchasing power of your money. Whereas if you used part of that lira to buy some Bitcoin, you're sitting in a much better position. But like you're probably not going to cash all your Bitcoin out into lira now because it's still losing purchasing power. So you're probably only going to want to convert your crypto or Bitcoin into that lira when you need to buy something. And ideally, you wouldn't have to. Ideally, you could just use the crypto in some sense, or there's a bunch of complicated ways you can do it in terms of getting a loan against it, blah, 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 blah. And, some people think if the currency is inflating that quick, you can get a loan against it, and then just the appreciation relative to the depreciation or the inflation of the lira can actually pay the loan off. But that's all complicated stuff. We don't it's just discuss. But that's what I don't think it, like, cryptos are denominated in whatever currency you want to denominate them in, essentially. But like, typically the US dollar has been like the gold standard.
So the Bitcoin purists would say that because Bitcoin isn't really what's it called? Because USD, right? They say that it decreases in its value between 6 to 8% annually, right? And if that's the strongest currency currently, then you can be rest assured that other currencies are probably being devalued at a higher rate per year, right?
Yeah.
And that's due to inflation and printing money. And the Bitcoin purists would say, well, that is not going to occur to Bitcoin because there's a finite amount of Bitcoin. So it losing its value is not, it doesn't really, it's kind of like anti-inflation or anti-deflation. I don't know how to say it, but you know what I mean? Like it's kind of, that's what they would say. So buying Bitcoin at basically any price now over the long term is going to be beneficial, because if you hold US dollars or you have an investment in something. Okay, I'll give you an example. So I recently saw Wolf of Wall Street. I can't remember his name. He was talking, and he said through his experience, the best investment currently is in the S&P 500, right? So the S&P 500 is the 500 best companies, and that actually gets changed from year to year depending on, well, because the 500 best companies aren't always going to be the 500 best, right? So that's going to change. But I think they give you a return of like 10% annually, around 10%. It might have been a little bit higher. Can't remember exactly what it was. But if you compare it to any investment firm, there's not one big investment firm that has been able to beat the S&P 500, right? So he was saying like Warren Buffett would even talk about this. He would say, I don't know if it was him, but I think it might have been. He placed a bet out there. Okay, can any investment firm beat the S&P 500? And none of them can. None of them really wanted to take on that bet, or like, yeah, because throughout the years, it's been shown that if you just throw your money into the S&P 500, that is like long term the most secure investment, and it pretty much guarantees you 10% return each year. But then if you look at the 6 to 8% of devalue that the American dollar goes through, then you're only making like 2 to 4% annually on that investment. So it seems terrible. It seems terrible to be investing at all in anything with USD, the strongest currency, if you think about it, right? And then on top of that, when you sell your investment, you have to pay like a massive tax. If there's a capital gain tax on that too. So then it's like, so what the fuck is the point of investing then? If you're investing in the best investment, like, what Warren Buffett and Wolf of Wall Street say, S&P 500, you're not making very much. You're making like fucking nothing, basically. So that's where the BTC, the Bitcoin purists, come in and say, well, then just all out BTC. That's why it's so attractive to invest in crypto, because you don't get taxed on it.
And well, it doesn't, you definitely will once you cash out. If you go back into the fiat world, there will be damn taxes.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
There will be. Yes, I know what you're saying. Like, you can sort of keep it in the. Yeah, there's a more upside. I have an interesting chart just quickly. So just to hit back to what you said though. So still making 2 to 4% is still better than making no percent. So like, if you were to hold cash over that time, you would have lost all of that value, as opposed to investing in the S&P 500. So at least your sort of money is out there doing more work. And yeah, you're right. That is a very common thing that people pronounce. Like, they say the individual person can't pick the winners or whatever. So you may as well just buy one of these indexes that gives you exposure to those things, and you'll essentially get 10% a year compounded. Now, there have been people that have beat that, right? So Jim Simons from... Jeez.
Also that politician, what's her name?
Oh, Nancy Pelosi.
Pelosi.
Yeah. She's been pumping. Okay, so no, so Jim Simons, he had a fund. He was a mathematician, physicist, worked in gauge theory and a bunch of cool stuff like that. And he set up a fund, ages ago. And he's essentially compounded 25% a year for the last 20 years or something. So he has like some of the best returns ever. But yeah, so quick thing to share just quickly, just to put this into sort of perspective for some people. This is a post by this Dylan LeClaire, who's like a popular Bitcoin guy. So essentially what you were just talking about, 1 second, apologies for the screen. Okay. So what you were just talking about is like, if you had put your money in stocks, you would be up, 19%. I don't know if you can see that. I'll zoom in. Okay. Yeah. So if you, okay, here we go. Okay. So if you were to dollar cost average Bitcoin, stocks, bonds, gold, whatever, right? If you were to dollar cost average $10 daily since 2021, or the 11th of the 10th, 2021, you'd be up 19% right now. If you'd bought gold, you'd be up 9%. If you bought bonds, you'd be down 9%. If you bought the NASDAQ, you'd be plus 31%. And if you had been dollar cost averaging into Bitcoin, you'd be plus 107%. So Bitcoin is emerging to be like the king, which is what he symbolized here. Like, it has been a pretty good trade, unless you bought at the top and then sold at the bottom and then are now going to buy at the top again. So, timing does matter to a degree, but essentially this dollar cost averaging is just like, every day you allocate a small amount. Instead of trying to time the market, you just gradually increase your exposure over time. That has proven to be like, probably the best strategy. Okay. But yeah, Bitcoin is emerging to be, pretty damn valuable. Like part of the maxi narrative about fiat going to zero is essentially, coming true. And like we said, like, these changes will happen bit by bit and then all of a sudden. So are we at the all of a sudden time now? I don't know. My intuition says we probably aren't, but my intuition could be completely wrong and we very well could be. It's hard to tell.
That's been my strategy. Like I've attempted to buy the dips and sell it at the highs and do that, like that sort of roller coaster effect. And I've actually had a little bit of success, but I recently fucked up huge with Phantom, and I think I might have like erased all of the gains that I might have had leading up to that. So I think I decided I'm gonna stop doing that because it's too much. It's too much trying to time the market and it doesn't work. And after I heard the Wolf of Wall Street say that, like you're never gonna time the market, right? Nobody will. It's impossible to do so unless you have like the insider information. So he's like, you just might as well just give up on that. And what that chart was showing, that if you just do frequent investments over time, then that's the best way to do it. So that would probably be my strategy moving forward. I have been doing that, but I tried kind of sort of doing both. But to look at Bitcoin, like 107% increase over a year is ridiculous, dude. That's so ridiculous. And even the 31% by NASDAQ, that's also ridiculous. Like they say 10% a year is phenomenal. So anything above that is amazing. And if you're an investor that you just got in investing Bitcoin, I think the expectations are really high because you've seen like massive gains since Bitcoin or since crypto has been around. But like to have an expectation of 100% increase year by year, that's crazy. That's stupid. Like your expectation should be 10%. Like that's great, right? So I think like people like who have had experience in crypto, I would say that the expectations have probably been inflated because it's been so insane. And I don't know how long this can go on for. You know what I mean? There's going to get a point where it's going to level out when it becomes super mainstream. And those gains are just not going to be the same anymore. Because as soon as that happens, you know what I mean? Like as soon as somebody becomes mainstream, those massive gains are going to be far and few in between. So even if Bitcoin is high right now, it's probably still a good idea to buy in if you're looking at like a 10 to 20 year investment, because investment is not about making money fast. Like it's not. Like you might get really lucky, like winning the lottery, invest in something and it might blow up, but the likeliness of that happening is very, very slim. So you have to really plan for like a 10 to 20 year return is what I would say. Even in Bitcoin, even in crypto.
Yeah. So just to caveat a couple of things you said. So you said like no one can predict the market. No, people can. It's just incredibly hard. It's incredibly unlikely that you will, right? But people still can. You might just decide to buy Bitcoin today and then it could pump to the moon tomorrow. Like, there are those cases. But it's not just that simple. Like it's really hard to know when to sell and when to buy and when to do all those things. And so you can spend you can spend your entire day, week, month, years, thinking through these things and still be wrong, right? Like it's just it's an incredible amount of time and energy and computation that has to go into this. And the world is incredibly competitive. Like there are teams of people who are, mathematical savants or geniuses who are competing against you, who have way more compute power than you do, who are way closer to the exchanges and where the trades are executed, that can front run you, that can sandwich you, that can do all sorts of different things to essentially take out the edge that you might have had. It's just so incredibly competitive. To think that you, one person, will be able to beat these armies and teams of people who are way better funded, way better resourced, and arguably have a higher bandwidth or capacity to model the world. It's kind of naive, but it doesn't mean it can't happen. Okay, so it's like it's not impossible; it's just highly improbable. Or highly unlikely, right? The other thing is, like dollar cost averaging is like the tried and true best strategy. It's just like, stop trying to get rich quick. If you believe in this thing long term, then just allocate a set amount of money that you can afford to go through each day, each week, right? Like that's the main thing, is just gradually increase your exposure over time. And if you do that, it can be a very fruitful strategy. If you don't, and you want to try and play the get rich quick scheme, what typically happens is you help someone else get rich quick and you get poor really quick. Warren Buffett and a bunch of other people have like a really good saying about this with the stock market, is a stock market is a funnel from the impatient to the patient, right? It essentially funnels money from the impatient people, the people who want to get rich quick, to the people who are willing to wait a long period of time to get rich. And if you zoom out long enough with the crypto stuff, it looks like that could be a good bet, because inflation is a bit of a problem, right? I'm pretty sure the debt obligations for the US currently are like 9% a year, like 9%. I butchered that. It's essentially, inflation is like 9% a year in the US right now, right? So you're losing 9% of your purchasing power every year on the US dollars that you hold, right? And it doesn't look like that's getting better, right? Especially because we haven't had this correction or this recession that is, meant to help to reset those things. So it does appear that things that do have a finite supply may be of value in the future, right? Because where else are people going to store the things? Like, that is one argument. But yeah, markets are crazy. The world is hard. It's super competitive. Definitely, the sooner you can get out of your get rich quick phase, probably the better off you're going to be long term. I've been there and made all those mistakes, by the way, as well.
Same guy. Same. You have to, though. We have to go through it. You have to go through it, though, dude. It's the only way to learn. It's the only way to learn and do it right.
Yeah, it's one way to learn. It's typically the way that we do learn, but you can learn vicariously, and oftentimes it's a lot better to learn vicariously if you can. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to learn vicariously those things just yet.
No, guys, I think I'm too stubborn to do. I have to make my own mistakes. I have to do it myself. Sometimes I think, no, I'll be the one that doesn't make those mistakes. You know what I mean? Like my ego plus
I'm special.
Me being stubborn. Yeah, exactly. So me thinking that, like my ego plus on top of that, me being stubborn really just fucked me. But I think I got it under control now.
Good shit. So yeah, it's an interesting time to be alive, right? Like, the AI boom is pumping. Nvidia stock price is through the roof. Like Nvidia is over $1 trillion. It's making millionaires and billionaires out of many, many people. GPU sales are pumping. Like they release their earnings and they're cranking. There was a lot of people hypothesizing that if they missed earnings, we could have seen a big correction in the market, right? Like Nvidia seems to sort of be pulling a lot of the things up. Another crazy thing is like, crypto uses GPUs, right? So is part of the increase in Bitcoin currently to do with ETFs and also to do with the price of GPUs, because the price of GPUs is going up. So how much of the Bitcoin price is actually reflected in how much energy and computation is needed to mine the blocks for the network. So that's an interesting thing. Yes. Bonkers.
We're still seeing there's still this trend I'm still noticing where it's like Daddy Bitcoin. When Daddy Bitcoin goes up in price, all the other cryptos sort of follow. And when Daddy Bitcoin goes down in price, all the other cryptos sort of follow. I'm curious when it's going to come a time where some of these other cryptos, like some of the other big ones, are going to be independent from Bitcoin, right? Because I haven't seen that yet. Like there'll be some smaller cryptos that will pump whether or not Bitcoin is doing well or not, because they're really small and the market cap is really small in them. And like if you have a $1 million market cap and then a few people invest, you could get that market cap from 1 to 3 million pretty quickly, because it is a lot of money, but it's not if you think about like a market cap over crypto. So that crypto will pump like crazy. But for these bigger cryptos, for like a big pump, you need a shit ton more money, much larger impact on the market cap for them to pump. But what I'm saying is that if you look at like Ethereum, XRP, Matic, Phantom, I don't know, there's like the top 20 or the top 50.
There is a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot. They aren't independent. It just doesn't seem like they're very independent from Bitcoin. That people who are coming into crypto always buy Bitcoin first, and then they start looking at maybe the other top 20 or top 50. But they don't really move independently from Bitcoin. Do you think that we'll get to a point where they eventually will?
Potentially, if there's a sufficient use case, right, like a compelling use case for it. I don't think most people come into crypto buying Bitcoin first. I think there's been a shift there. So I think I can't remember the exact things I read on this, but it appears like a decent percentage of people's intro to crypto is actually through like meme coins and shit coins, and then like they end up like either getting a good run and then getting burnt, or getting a good run, then cashing out and buying into Bitcoin. So it's kind of like it's the safer haven, if that makes sense.
I see.
It's the less volatile out of the cryptos kind of thing. But it does seem to be like the safe haven, or like you said, daddy Bitcoin, and then everyone runs back to it, when the going gets tough or whatever. But I think there are many other onboardings now for cryptos. Like, I think a lot of people have that sentiment that they would like to get rich quick. Like, I think that's, most people's dreams is probably to get rich quick. So it's an incredibly appealing thing to sell that to people. Like the meme coins and the shit coins and all that other stuff, I think is actually quite a big onboarding mechanism now.
So we got...
Are you fact checking me?
No. I'm just looking what the top ones are, because I only follow like 6, but Bitcoin is number 1, Ethereum, then Tether or USDT, BNB, so that's the Binance crypto, which is crazy that Binance has been able to also have like their own crypto and make it into the top 4. Then there's Solana, XRP, USDC, that's another stable, Cardano, Avalanche. It's funny that, look, Dogecoin, number 10. This meme coin, this shit coin, it's making waves.
But it's based off Bitcoin.
Is it really?
It's based off Bitcoin. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Then Tron, Chainlink, Polkadot, Polygon, Toncoin, Uniswap. Wow. So Uniswap was an exchange first, wasn't it?
Uniswap was a protocol on Ethereum, or smart contracts on Ethereum. Yeah. And then I think they actually have their own chain.
Wow. Shiba Inu, number 17. Internet Computer, ICP. I never even heard of that. Number 18. Bitcoin Cash, and then Litecoin, number 20.
So they're still essentially like a lot of those are the OGs in a sense.
Yeah.
But that's by market cap, right?
That's by market cap. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So if you looked, I don't know if you can, but if you looked at like, transactions per day, or like, transaction volume, or any number of different things, you might see different. There's an interesting, so just to hit your question that you asked before, just to give an answer to that, like,
yeah.
Do I think something will separate from Bitcoin? Like, I think, over time things will diverge and then merge, obviously, but there exists the space for it to diverge significantly if somebody actually, comes up with a compelling enough or valuable enough use case for one of these cryptos, right? Like, if they can do that at sufficient scale, it will become its own thing for sure. That's like, we could see, many of these things sort of happen. But I think it will be like a lot like evolution. We'll have lots of branching, right? So there'll be like huge amounts of, little plants that shoot up, but very few of them actually survive to grow into big trees.
So Bitcoin's market cap just made it over $1 trillion, eh?
So it's back over $1 trillion in USD.
Yeah, in USD. Sorry, everything I'm going to be saying is going to be in USD. But yeah, and then their 24-hour volume is at 50 billion.
Big time.
Wow, that's crazy. But the biggest trading volume has been within the last 24 hours has been USDT, okay? 81 billion. So significantly more than Bitcoin. That's interesting.
USDT, so that's what people are using to buy in and out, right? Like that's
true. So that makes sense.
The mechanism.
Yeah.
That's another thing that's interesting to think about. It's the USDT tether, all of the shadiness and sketchiness that goes around it. And like, are they actually backed by dollars? Da-da-da-da-da.
Well, who was that? What was that one that got completely fucked recently? Like within the last year, it was a stable. It was UST, I think it was. And that was alongside of, what was it?
Were you talking about Luna?
Luna, and
their
UST.
stable coin? Yeah.
Which got completely wrecked, right?
Well, so that's because they had, in their protocol, they had a built-in 20% sort of a year mechanism. So like if you bought their token and then deposited it, like, so you sort of like lent it back to the protocol or whatever, you could borrow stable coins against that. And then you could do a whole bunch of different stuff and you could essentially make 20% a year on your money, right? And so people were doing this, but they were just like sort of infinitely doing it, which caused, a lot of, values to inflate and prices to go up and all that kind of stuff. And then as soon as people started to sort of exit, it had this cascading effect where it just completely collapsed and went to almost zero, like 0.0000000 something or other. And that was part of the last big crash cycle, right? This is the SBF and all of those days. So hopefully we've weeded out a bunch of that stuff and this time can be different. But I don't think that Bitcoin or crypto currently is separate from global events. You know what I mean? Like I still think it's going to be tied to those. And the way things are heating up geopolitically, it's like, this seems like a little bit too good to be true right now. Like I would love to believe that this is the case. And it very well could be the case if things don't take a turn for the worst in geopolitics, right? But I do think that if something does happen there, fear is the mind killer, and we could be seeing some large declines and a bunch of fear and uncertainty or whatever. But I do think after that, it's probably going to be back up again until something else happens, obviously.
Have you still been investing? I know you said you kind of stepped away from like researching crypto because you've gotten more interested in AI and shit, but have you still maintained, investing here and there?
Not so much, just dollar cost averaging. That's pretty much what I've done most of the time. I still stayed allocated and all of those things, but I definitely don't spend like anywhere near the amount of time and energy like looking into things in that space. Like essentially, like I think you go down the rabbit holes long enough, you sort of realize like, okay, there is a problem with this inflation and fiat and just printing money. Like it does have problems, it does have consequences. This is a technology, like Bitcoin is a technology, crypto is a technology that can mediate some of that, or offset it, or can be a hedge against it. So I've always thought that like having some exposure is useful and valuable. But I definitely don't allocate anywhere near the time and energy to try to like trade any of this stuff or do any of those things. It's more just like, dollar cost in what you can over time, and you'll slowly accumulate. If everything does go to shit, it'll be useful. If it doesn't, It's okay because the other things that we do in our lives can help to offset it. But I'm actually a fan of just building now. Like I think that screw having to depend on someone else or other things for price appreciation or whatever. You can actually create things that are valuable and useful to people in the world. Like it's a great way to create value and to get value. And so I don't think that you'll ever be poor or ever be without if you can create valuable things for other people, for yourself, number one, but also for other people. So there's a good saying that's like, you can solve a problem for 1 million people, you can be a millionaire. You can solve a problem for 1 billion people, you can be a billionaire. So I think that there are lots of problems that still exist in the world. And so, by coming up with valuable solutions to those problems, you'll be rewarded immensely.
I'm kind of thinking that AI has sort of overshadowed everything, right? And probably overshadowed crypto in a large way. Because when you told me that your attention has sort of gone to artificial intelligence and you haven't been doing as much work on researching crypto, I would say the same for me, right? And I would say that a lot of people are probably in that same boat, because just as crypto started making a lot of noise, AI just came into our lives, right? Just out of nowhere. So I'm kind of curious where Bitcoin or crypto could have been if AI just didn't just barge in like it did, right? Because I think many people's focus has become on that, and many investors have been investing heavily in AI technologies and NVIDIA, obviously, because what are they today, by the way? Because I made a huge mistake selling. I bought it at 100. I remember I told you that before. But I had no choice. I had to sell because I was hurting for money. Buddy, they're at 787 today. Holy fuck, bro. I could have 8x'd my investment. I still did pretty well, but god damn, dude. God damn, this is crazy. That's the part of the game. That's part of the game. I invested, so I must have invested, because I invested around $100. So that was July 2020. Yeah, that sounds about right. Damn.
But again, you needed the money, so
yeah,
that's the thing.
I just needed the money. Yeah,
it was valuable to you in that point in time.
Yeah.
Just quickly, so where do I think crypto would be without the AI stuff? I honestly think crypto would be worse off without the AI stuff. Crypto is although it's a novel technology and there are definite use cases for it, it was largely just bullshit and Ponzi's and scams and grifters. It really, really was that. The whole NFT thing, paying ridiculous amounts of money for a pixelated monkey picture. All of that stuff was just yes, it's cool and novel technology. NFTs, non-fungible tokens, having something that is non-fungible, it's incredibly useful. Don't get me wrong. But that use case of it was a bit of a joke. And I honestly think without the AI stuff coming in and sort of overshadowing a bit and taking some attention off it, it kind of was a bit of a cleansing for crypto. It helps for a lot of the grifters and the scammers to sort of drop off and lose interest. Hopefully jump over to AI and get destroyed because, the real things will talk over time. But I think it's been a really good thing. I think it's helped to sort of clean it out a bit in terms of getting rid of a bunch of that. Obviously, it's still going to exist, but I do think that there was a big urge and a big cleansing. And I think ultimately it will be better off for that. But the AI stuff is fascinating because AI is the meta disruptor. It's the thing that will disrupt pretty much all things. AI, because it is intelligence, can affect everything. And so if you're not sort of paying attention or trying to understand it to some degree, I think there is a chance that you could be left behind, or you could possibly become part of the class that is sort of enslaved by it. I do think that is a possible future, that AI will get to a point where it is sufficiently good and powerful and able to control and manipulate and essentially enslave people. whether it's via consumption or dopaminergic pathways or just through oppression. And it doesn't have to be done by the AI itself. It could be done by people controlling those AIs. So I think it's an important technology to understand like, what is this? Why is it possible? Where could it be heading? Because, there's a lot of like the Orwellian, complete control systems. Like AI enables that. It makes control a lot easier to some degree, right? But it can also, on the flip side of that, be an incredibly empowering tool that can allow, each and every human to have access to vastly more intelligence and compute and to solve problems at larger scales across bigger boundaries and areas than ever before in human history. It can unlock a huge amount of potential, or it can lock up a huge amount of human potential. That's the sort of duality with these things. And so I think it's an important thing to understand. So like anyone that isn't trying to understand that, I do think runs the risk of sort of becoming a slave in some sense to it or to people who wield it.
Damn, good point, Rubes. Good point. Yeah. I see that. I got fucked up in a Ponzi. Well, no, sorry, not a Ponzi. Most of them are Ponzi's, but I got fucked up in a scam. Remember I told you? I think I shared that story.
It's incredibly common.
Yeah.
It's so common because it's such an attractive thing to sell a dream of getting rich quick. And we all want to think that we're special and we all can do it. And that people can, as soon as you realize that that's the case, that like, oh, everyone wants to be rich quick or everyone wants this, then you can sell that dream. And because, and I'm going to say this word, regulation, like I'm not all for 100% regulation, but there is some usefulness to a bit of regulation because there are information asymmetries that exist. All right. Like people can say a lot of stuff that can't be true. And then people can believe that and want it to be true and then get involved in these things. And so people can prey on that. But in a way, it is all unnecessary learning for society and for people, right? Like as those things happen, you will become more skeptical about the things that you start to do. If it doesn't break you, you will become more skeptical, right? Like what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Unfortunately, for some people, it can kill them, right? Like they can literally invest their life savings, and when all of that goes to zero, they can think that there's no hope. So then they end their life. Like this happened with the lunar stuff. There were many people who committed suicide after that crash. And that's a sad thing. But the meta-organism that is life still marches on and hopefully learns from those things so that those things are less easy to do over time, right? Like it's harder to scam people over time. Ideally, we build up defenses towards this, right? Like I'm sure that you're not someone who looks at your email and when you've got an email from a Nigerian prince offering you $1 million, all they need is $1,000 to transfer it to you. You're probably not going to open that email and reply back and send the money to them. But there are still people who will do that, and they might need to get burned before they learn that that's like fire, right? Like don't touch that.
Absolutely. You got anything else about crypto?
No, I wrap it up with like my general vibe, and like this is not investment advice. It's like obviously like I'm an idiot. People definitely take what I say with a grain of salt. It isn't based on like thousands of hours of research or anything, but I feel like this seems a bit odd right now. I'll preface that with like I still have exposure, so like I'm not cashing out right this second. But I don't know, the way things are heating up, it seems like this is prime for a bit of a pump and then some sort of dump happening. And I think that's likely going to be based on what happens geopolitically, right? Like, is NATO accepting Ukraine? Is Russia going to take that as an act of aggression? Is something going to kick off? Or is something kick off somewhere else? Don't know. None of us do, so we can't really protect it. All I'm going to say is be safe. Be safe out there. I don't know if now is the time to be YOLOing or doing anything hasty, if that makes sense. If you're not exposed, maybe consider getting some if you're worried about it. But if you are, possibly hedge yourself for the downside. Just play it safe. What a pussy.
No, but it's good advice, guy. That's how you have to do it, man. You got to be a
Yeah.
pussy when you're an investor. Yeah, in a way,
No,
right?
you got to be ballsy. You got to be ballsy, but you've also got to be calculated with it as well. Like you should be trying to, minimize your downside. And so like, if you are already exposed, consider, hedging some of that exposure. If you're not, consider getting a little bit. But like, again, I don't know, something just feels odd to me. I can't articulate it 100%, but it is heavily tied to like the geopolitical stuff. And so, yeah, I'm not like, oh my God, this is off to the races, boys. It's hitting 250K in a couple of weeks. Like I can't say that. I just, for whatever reason, I just don't feel that currently.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's not yet. It's not happening yet. There's going to be some shit first. I like it, guys. So like,
but if there isn't, awesome.
Yeah, exactly. How do the investors say it? You got to be aggressively patient? Is that what they say?
I don't know, but that sounds pretty good.
Yeah. And you do got to be ballsy. I think that's true. But you also got to be like mad patient, and
you got to know when to hold them, know when to fold them. Something. Walk away. There's lots of great sayings out there. If you want some advice, go listen to people that provide advice. We're just two idiots talking shit, chewing the fat, running through things that are popping into our minds. But it's an interesting time to be alive. Crypto looks like it's been reinvigorated, and in the ETFs is a big thing. I believe there's an Ethereum ETF coming up as well. So we could still see more net inflows, but that does not mean that it's just up only, okay? There can still be many other things that happen, right? Like crypto might be a bubble, but it doesn't solely exist within a bubble, if that makes sense. Like it's not free from outside influences. So just remember to like keep it all in mind.
All right, bro. Good advice, guy.
And thanks for listening. You gotta tune us out with your outro, guy. You did the intro, you gotta get the outro.
The outro. All right.
Yep. Let's go.
Well, thank you for tuning in this long, listening to two idiots talk about complicated shit. It's probably a journey, probably a bit of a journey. We appreciate you still being here, and we'll see you next time. That was a shitty outro, man. Fuck. That's all right.
All right.
I'll work on it.
Thanks for that great outro, guy. Peace.
All right, later, bro. Peace. Love you.
Love you too, guy. Bye.
Later.